Hi, and welcome to the Afro Mavericks. My name is Motsepe, and to my right is this guy.
Mighty Jamie.
Mighty Jamie. I
Why
don't
do you
know
keep calling me
why.
this guy?
I was gonna say this guy, Mighty Jamie, but
Okay.
you
You're
were
like
like
this guy. No respect, no love here in the room. This guy, this girl.
All right, no problem. Let's dive into it. So
Uh,
today we're doing things a little bit differently.
Yeah.
We are checking out the hottest topics or stories in our paper today.
And giving hot takes and
giving
see
some
how conversation goes.
Exactly. So what do we have first?
So first we have Judge Hlope. Right. What's your hot take on Judge Hlope and the story? It's actually a story that Mail and Guardian was leading with, and it's one of the stories that actually is quite interesting. But what's your take?
Look, I think in our legal system, we've had incidences where judges have been accused of influencing other judges, using their power or siding with a certain politician, etc. So I think this is nothing new. However, I do think that where there's smoke, there's fire. The fact that there are allegations that he of gross misconduct, etc. I think that we need to be objective, yes, and say, okay, at the end of the day, these allegations need to be proven. But at the same time, for me, where there's smoke, there's fire. And the fact that there are allegations that have been consistent and it's not just a once-off situation, something is fishy here.
Okay, so I disagree a little bit with what you're saying. So number one, I think that there's an issue that's going on between Judge Patrice, who is the Deputy Judge President of the Western Cape system, and also Judge Sally Hlope, who is very involved in the day-to-day running of, technically she shouldn't be, but she is. And she's the wife of,
She just happens to be.
She's the wife of the Judge President Hlope, right? So now, I think there's an element of power contestation, and Patricia Goliath is actually making a power move. And this is why she's bringing up these 2015 incidents only in 2020. But I also had a bit of an issue with a lot of the innuendo and gossip she put out around the other stuff about domestic abuse, around a sexual incident that happened in the office where she said, I don't have the details, it's hearsay, but we can find out what happened. I think if you're just going to make an accusation about this guy tried to influence me to get pro-Zuma judges on the nuclear deal, that's one thing. We need to clarify that. But now if you're also making these other allegations about domestic violence, about things that went on in people's offices, and you don't have first-hand evidence, I think that there's more to that than meets the eye.
Yeah. But I think looking at it from face value, we can't just say, okay, of course there is a power contestation. But if she's saying it's not just one issue that we're looking at,
but the evidence,
multiple.
this is what I'm saying, is like if you start spreading gossip as a judge, do you know what I mean? You are casting, you actually are reducing the credibility of the other stuff that you're speaking about. And that's the concern. Because if you say, this guy made me choose judges or tried to make me choose judges that were pro-Zuma, then you say, I also heard, but I can't confirm that something happened in his office and that he may have had a fight with his wife and a third person at his home. All of a sudden, we've moved away from a substantive complaint about the quality of the judiciary to something that is more Nkosi and Sunday World, Sunday, what is it? What is it called, the other one?
It's Sunday World.
And then the other one is called what? There's two
Daily
of them.
Sun.
No,
Sunday
Sun,
World.
that one.
Yes, that one with the witchcraft situation.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when they smoke this fire. Next,
so now let's move to. Right.
We've
Okay.
got Donald Trump and Motsepe. So Motsepe is at the World Economic Forum. He stands up and he says, Mr. President Donald Trump, Africa loves you.
Yeah, so here's my hot take. Number one, I think that there was a little bit of misconstruing what he said. Because most of what he said was, Africa loves America, and if America succeeds, Africa succeeds. And then towards the end, he made this intimation that Africa wishes Trump well. So then people then said, look, Motsepe said that he loves Donald Trump. But let's engage all of those things. So number one, I do think that America is a better hegemonic power than China and Russia because they are oppressive and they are sinister states. So if I had to choose, I would rather choose a world where you have an American oversight of global affairs than China and Russia. That's one. Number two, I do think that there are mixed sentiments in some parts of Africa. Some Africans do have an appreciation of Donald Trump, but I don't think that you can universally say that Donald Trump is loved. And I had an issue with him speaking on behalf of Africa when he doesn't actually represent any element of Africa. But on the other side, he was obviously trying to suck up to Trump to make sure that South Africa gets favorable deals downstream because Donald Trump is egotistical. And as a result of that, it's good strategy for him to do that, even though it may have come across as offensive to us.
I do think that from the perspective of when we're going to look back at the records and say who was Patrice Motsepe, of course he doesn't amount to this one moment, but in the list of things that he's done, looking at him sucking up to a Donald Trump, that's not a good look though.
So you think it was a fail?
That isn't a good look. I think from the perspective of him wanting to bag certain benefits for South Africa or for him as a business person, kudos. Maybe it will work. Maybe Trump will fall into that and say, hey, everybody, let's go and do business in South Africa. But I do think that, in terms of standing, South Africa, in terms of ties, South Africa and China are better suited.
Yeah.
For me, I think so.
Why? Why do you say that?
Just because, look, from the perspective of China has not been forceful in its trade ties with Africa.
China malls are killing South African industry and Lesotho as well.
I absolutely get that. I agree. But I think that in terms of the trade relations, China has not been forceful in that. They've said, look, we're going to go into Africa. We actually want to do things differently as compared to how you were colonized and you were forced to trade with, other countries. We actually want to give you some leeway, right? So, but I do think that I've got an issue with how he spoke on behalf of Africa. Had Aliko Dangote done that, I would not have so much a problem.
Oh, why?
Because I'm the richest man in Africa.
So because he's the richest man.
No, I'm kidding. I'd still have an issue. But I do think he should not have spoken on behalf of the entire of Africa.
Fair enough. Okay. So now here we go. Next one is South African Airways. And the 2 billion amount, or maybe even 8 billion that they need for restructuring. What's your hot take?
Look, I think, sorry. SAA is failing. Someone was saying this, why don't we sell off a good 49% off to Ethiopian Airlines? I was like,
but do they want to buy?
Hypothetically speaking, this could be a genuine solution to the problem. So instead of selling off to some Western power, why not sell it off to Ethiopians who know what they're doing? And that is an African company. I absolutely 100% agree with that. If we are privatizing SAA in that context of saying, but we're putting Africans on the table to get a slice of the pie with us, 100% agree.
Okay, so I think I have just a different take on SAA. I think what Richard Quest said at Davos was actually quite informative, because he said, number one, if you guys as a developmental state want to bail out this particular parastatal because it's critical for your growth, that's fine. But be very clear that there's a policy decision that's been made so that the markets know how to navigate that space. So they know how to lend, because they know that whatever shortfall government will cover, and everybody understands. But the challenge is government keeps trying to play fast and loose with, they try to make it seem as if SAA is a standalone business that's supposed to be profitable. Not every parastatal is supposed to be like that necessarily. And he pointed out that that's a problem. And number two, he pointed out that ANC politicians can't keep their hands out of the cookie jar. And I think everybody resonated with that. So I think that when it comes to SAA, this issue of the 2 billion is another indication of confusing messaging coming out of the Ministry of Finance, because now they're saying we're still trying to find that money. But earlier they told companies that, listen, we are going to provide this post-commencement funding, the PCF, as a necessary prerequisite to you guys agreeing to the business rescue.
Yeah.
So now, a few months later, 2 months later, now you're saying, listen, we're not going to do it. That kind of messaging is the kind of messaging that makes investors and rating agencies think you're not serious about your act. So that's my take on this whole thing.
Give it to Ethiopia.
I don't know if selling it to Ethiopia is a better form of privatization, but Quest thought privatization, if you're not going to be able to solve it, rather, he said hide it away in the private sector. I have issues with hiding most stuff away in the private sector, but maybe an airline is different because normally when you hide stuff in the private sector, they begin to overcharge everybody. But let's be honest,
because
most South
the
Africans
idea
aren't
is
flying.
to subsidize South Africans.
Yeah, but
that's why.
But most South Africans aren't flying, so I don't have a problem with. You see, with Eskom, it's different because if you have it in private hands and they start pushing up the prices, it affects everyone. It's harder to control. But
all
with
right. BT is gonna kill us. Okay, so next story, Parktown Boys.
Show the masses.
Parktown Boys, right?
Yeah.
So this little boy, Enoch, he drowned, right?
Yes.
And now there is all this drama surrounding that. What's your take?
So my take in the first instance is that it's very important for entities to own up to responsibility as soon as they can. My biggest issue with this, I think, look, the accident has happened. You can't change the fact of the drowning. But the fact that they were told that this boy is missing, didn't go look for him immediately, and tried to make it seem as if he's not there, etc., etc., that to me spoke of a cover-up. So, and the communication from Parktown Boys, I found it to be horrific. I think that if they had come clean and said, listen, we went on camp and one of the boys went missing because unfortunately he couldn't swim and we didn't provide them with life jackets even though we should have. That's a mistake on our part. We're willing to do whatever it takes to make it right. I think that the outrage would have been reduced because people would have said, these things actually happen. You guys need to, make peace with this family and do whatever is required in terms of, amends, compensation, etc. Although you can never really replace a life. I think that they were so panicky because of their previous rape issue with the one teacher who molested over 400 boys or something like that, that they were trying to cover up. And in covering up things, they made things worse. I also don't know why this issue actually is being dealt with under the auspices of an independent investigation. I think that it's clear that there has been a negligent death, that's culpable homicide. And I think when you have culpable homicide, this becomes a police matter. I don't think that it's enough that, Malcolm Williams, the principal, was suspended and that there's this, I think what's needed is people to be held criminally accountable. Let it go to a court, let it be ventilated properly, let that justice be served. I don't think that we are serving the interest of justice when it looks like this powerful school is having its own lane of justice created for them outside of everybody else. If court was good enough for Oscar Pretorius, it's good enough for this particular case. Because remember, he was also arguing that he made a mistake.
Yeah.
So that's my take on this issue.
Yeah, I'm captured complete. But also I just want to add that the MEC of Education in Gauteng, did come out and say, look, the camp wasn't even approved by the district. So that's another big thing, that Parktown Boys is not even following the correct processes. So maybe that's one of the reasons why they tried to hide behind
indemnity forms.
Exactly.
And the law on indemnity forms is such that it can't be to the adverse consequence of the person who signed the indemnity form. You can't have somebody die and say, well, you signed the indemnity form, so I'm
the right to life is just kind of...
Interestingly enough, the minister can be held vicariously liable for the actions of the school because Parktown Boys is a public school. This is also why there's a lot of activity from the ministry to try to manage
the situation.
Exactly. There's a case, I can't remember the name of the case, but it was a police matter where a policeman who was off duty raped a girl that he took home from the club. And the Minister of Police...
That's an old case. I think I remember...
And the Minister of Police was held liable for that, even though there was no direct link.
Which makes sense.
So you can't escape accountability even as the ministry for these kind of things. So we can have that legal debate in the comments, but I think that's why you've seen the reaction you've seen from the ministry, from the MEC. It's almost this attempt to avoid accountability as well.
Yeah, amazing.
Right. So who went? Was it me who went for Parktown? Was it
Yes.
you?
No, that was me.
All right.
This is your
So
turn.
Eskom, one of the top things, we've got Eskom's bid to save 5%, costing it 10 million. Just to give you a quick run through it, Jabu Mabuza's relative had this contract, and it was very expensive. So Eskom went to try to negotiate down.
Yeah.
And when they came back, they actually had negotiated themselves back up, and we're now paying this lady. What's her name again?
Somebody. She
Yeah,
looks
let's
like,
confirm her name.
It's somewhere in there.
Where is it at? Yeah, page 3. Her name is Nomvula Mabuza, and she's a distant relative of Jabu Mabuza. There's been a lot of reporting, good quality reporting from Mail and Guardian. So now they came back and it cost them 10 extra million.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
Nothing new yet again. Corruption in South Africa, and it's also just reminding me of like the case in Angola with Isabel dos Santos. But my take is this: Jabu Mabuza is gone, and Shabu, as much as there's a lot of smoke, which means there's fire in terms of this. I think maybe we want to demonize him even more and to say, this man should have never even been
I see.
chairman.
So it's like
interim
Jabu was the
CEO.
problem.
Yes, Jabu was the problem. Let him be the scapegoat. Throw some more spice and masala on him. Let's make a substantive case of why he should have never been on that board. Why he should have never been interim CEO in the first place.
But then why did they appoint him?
In the first place.
Yeah, I mean, because if you're saying this guy was so bad, you chose him. This was your guy.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, remember, someone needs to take political responsibility.
So this is the fall guy.
This is the fall guy, so we just need to have more evidence to show this is the reason why he should have never ever been there in the first place. He's also corrupt on top of being incompetent. So I think, yes, where they smoke this fire, but also why is the story coming out right now?
All right,
at this particular moment?
Got you. I'm captured. I don't think there's anything much to add to what you've said around this particular topic. Right, we've got 2 left. Which one are we going with?
Let's start with Ndade Tom Tavani. Oh.
So who went?
Spice.
Who went?
Spice. Okay, now it's my. Why are you so confused?
I'm
it's
trying
the espresso that's making
me. So you gave the hot take. Now it's my turn to give the hot take, right? So it's Lesotho politics is weird because I don't think that anybody has actually finished their 5-year term in recent times. But this Tom Tabane story is so messy because his wife is a fugitive and his phone was being called after the murder of his ex-wife, and he fired a police commissioner who was investigating him, and he's been avoiding reporting to the police for like a year, and then he announced this week that he's no longer going to be
retiring,
president.
But he didn't say when.
Yes.
So which means he's not going to retire.
The Constitution doesn't provide for a proviso of what do you do when the Prime Minister abdicates, so to speak. So the whole thing is messy. Just Lesotho politics is just messy. And then his daughter is very vocal and she's incriminating him on SABC. I'm just like, what the hell? And
SABC has been carrying the story.
They have been. They've been following
They've got
the files.
Source. I'm like, what is going on?
They're getting this files hot from Lesotho. But the other thing that's curious for me around, it's just like, there was a viral video that he shared with the wife. Yeah, with this current wife, the one who's now a fugitive. And they were singing, and it was all hunky-dory. And then now a few months later, the thing has collapsed. It's crazy how African politicians have drama with their wives. It makes me think about, what's his name? Chiwenga and his wife, is it Mary, or whatever her name is, Mary Chiwenga. It's drama, all up and down.
I don't understand why we have to be involved in all of this.
Well, it affects, this is a whole country, right? So it affects.
And also how, this particular wife, she passed away. She passed on. And
no, they're saying it's an assassination.
She was assassinated because literally 2 days before his inauguration, bam, she's gone. And she's shot at that. So I just, very political, and the wife running away. But can we not be involved in your marital situations that we don't want to be?
But here's the thing, when the marital situation affects government, so here's the thing about the current wife and why she's such a hot topic in Lesotho specifically. The current wife was influencing tender bids as to who was being allocated what at what time. And party, the African All Basotho Congress, felt like the Grace thing. That she was usurping the party's power. You know what I mean?
So you're just the wife now. All of a sudden you're
not just the wife. Not just the wife.
But that's how they would feel, right? Because you're not an elected official. You don't have standing to be determining tenders.
Fair enough, but not just the wife.
She's just the wife in this context.
Whether we like it or not, the spouse of the president, what's this pillar talk? That influences policy. That whether we like it or not, whether it's Michelle Obama, whether it's whoever.
Okay, so we got a last one.
He's not gonna resign. I'm just gonna put that out there.
But he has kind of like
this is like a mango sutukutelezi where he's like, I'm going to resign. Let me wait. Like
it's over for this guy. It's over for Tom. Tom is not gonna make it. Look, like as it stands from the reporting, it looks like he did it. He's not gonna OJ.
But he himself will not actually resign or retire.
But he's already said he's not gonna be prime minister. So it's over. It's a wrap. It's game over.
They like saying that they won't be.
No, but he's actually like stepped down. There's no prime minister right now in Lesotho. Okay, last one. It's your turn.
Public protector. There's
a lot of stories about the public protector. Parliament finalized the rules for removal, and it looks like they're good to go. The DA and the ANC went out yesterday, and Sunday Independent is reporting on SARS audits, and they're demanding financial statements.
That's an odd one. That's really odd.
So what's your take? Is that your take that it's odd?
Yeah, that's the fact that SARS is. We must also remember who was the commissioner of SARS once upon a time. It's that Mr. Jomnandas.
Jomnandas.
So he probably
that's
still
his name.
has.
It's not a
It's his real name,
actual
and
on his ID book and everything.
Document.
He probably gets called that at home by his kids. Just saying.
So yes, so my thing is he probably still has a lot of muscle in there, and he's like, look, this has been a thorn in my side. So how about you just investigate and find out? Yes, drop the files, and let's again, like Jabu Mabuza, just build more of a case. The thing about a public protector is that you don't just remove her the way you want. This matter still needs to go to Parliament, and they need to vote on it. And the ANC is a majority in Parliament.
But still, you know, like with all administrative action, it has to be based on rationality.
Yeah.
Now the challenge is, and I guess this will be my take, the challenge is if an undue, actually that's not the formal term. The formal term is an ulterior motive. If she then goes and says there was an ulterior motive to my removal, which is not on the basis of what they said they were removing me for, then that makes the administrative action invalid. So if I have a different reason for removing you, maybe I don't like you, maybe you're coming after my people, and then I find something that you've done and remove you for that thing, but you can prove that I had an ulterior motive, it then soils the action that you've committed, that particular decision. So I think that everyone is going to have to be very careful, because they've been expressly declaring that she must go for quite a while and that she needs to go now. And then some of the comments in Parliament were like, we're going to remove the public. So it was almost indicating that it's a foregone conclusion that we're doing this to remove her, as opposed to we want to really determine if there has been grave misconduct which sanctions her removal. So I think this is the danger that everyone is going into, and it plays into the factional political narratives.
I was just about to say that we're going to see a lot of factional politics within the ANC. We know the EFF will throw their weight behind her. Absolutely, that's a given. But in terms of the ANC, it would be interesting to see who actually says we want her out, we want her to stay. So
but a lot of the people in Parliament, they're gonna toe the party line in Parliament, because it won't be a secret ballot and all of that stuff, and they'll be afraid of reprisals. Because you must remember that the ANC does not believe in voting in your conscience. We saw that last time with Jacob Zuma.
Absolutely,
but
100%.
Remember the NGC is coming up, and that could actually lead to some traction from the Zuma faction. But it's too soon to tell. We'll have to see what happens. I think that was our last one.
To discuss the NGC, by the way.
Yeah? Okay, we'll do it.
Yeah. That's the last one.
That's the last one. Last one. So we're out of time. This was a different mix. So we're wrapping it up. Comment, give us feedback. Did you like the hot take mix? Like, comment, subscribe, all of that jazz. Till the next episode, it's been real. Peace.
Bye-bye.
We out.